Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Haven Colony's main tower, watching the sunrise paint the alien sky in shades of purple and gold. The twin suns of the Kepler system created beautiful mornings that never got old, even after 3 years of running this place. Below him, the colony buzzed with activity as 2.5 million humans went about their daily lives. "Commander, we have an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," said Lisa Parker as she walked up behind him. His second-in-command looked worried, which was unusual for her. Lisa never worried about anything. Jake turned away from the window. "What do they want this time? More taxes? New regulations about our mining operations?" "They say it's a routine inspection, but something feels wrong about it, sir." Lisa handed him a datapad. The message came from Ambassador Zethkar himself. "That's pretty high up the chain for a simple inspection." Jake read the message carefully. The words seemed normal enough, but there was something cold about the tone. The Velthari Empire rarely sent their top diplomats to deal with human colonies. They usually left that work to lower-ranking officials who treated humans like annoying children. "How many ships are they sending?" Jake asked. "That's what worries me. They won't say. Just that they'll arrive in 48 hours for a comprehensive review of colonial activities." Lisa crossed her arms. When has the Council ever been vague about fleet sizes? Jake felt a chill run down his spine. In his 10 years of dealing with alien politics, the Council always provided exact numbers for everything. Ship counts, crew sizes, inspection duration. They loved their paperwork and details. Vague language meant something was very wrong. "Me Dr. Brooks," Jake said. "I want to know if his research has attracted any unwanted attention." Nathan Brooks arrived 20 minutes later, still wearing his lab coat and looking like he hadn't slept in days. The colony's chief scientist had been working around the clock on something he called revolutionary, but he kept the details to himself. "You wanted to see me, Commander?" Nathan asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. "The Council is sending an inspection team. A big one, based on how secretive they're being about it. Is there anything in your research that might have made them nervous?" Nathan's face went pale. "Oh no. They found out about the terraforming project." "What terraforming project?" Lisa demanded. Nathan looked around nervously, then lowered his voice. "I've been working on a way to transform dead planets into garden worlds in decades instead of centuries. The process would let humanity expand faster than anyone thought possible." "And you didn't think to mention this before?" Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "I wanted to be sure it worked before getting anyone's hopes up, but if the Council knows about it..." Nathan trailed off, his face getting even paler. "They see it as a threat," Lisa finished. "Humanity expanding too fast, taking up too much space." Before Jake could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the colony. The emergency communication system crackled to life with Admiral Rivera's voice from the orbital defense station. "All personnel, this is Admiral Rivera. We have multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. Large fleet formation, estimated arrival in 30 minutes. This is not the inspection team we were expecting." Jake, Lisa, and Nathan rushed to the command center. The main screen showed dozens of red dots appearing at the edge of the system. More kept appearing every few seconds. "How many ships is that?" Jake asked the sensor operator. "Still counting, sir. We're up to 60, 70, 80 ships. Multiple species signatures. Velthari, Zephyrian, Hegemony, and at least 5 others I can't identify." Admiral Rivera's voice came through the speakers again, tight with tension. "Commander Morrison, we have a problem. My defense fleet has 12 ships. They brought over 100. The main screen shifted to show Admiral Rivera's weathered face. The old soldier looked grim but determined. "Jake, I don't think this is an inspection. This looks like an invasion force." "Maybe they're just trying to intimidate us," Lisa suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. "No," Nathan said quietly. "They're here to stop the terraforming research permanently." The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, creating a wall of ships that blocked out the stars. Jake had never seen so many different alien vessel types working together. The Council species rarely cooperated on anything, let alone military operations. Then Ambassador Zethkar's face appeared on every screen in the colony. His reptilian features showed no emotion as he began to speak. Humans of New Haven Colony, you have violated the Galactic Development Accords through unauthorized technological advancement. Your terraforming research represents a clear threat to established interstellar order. You have 30 minutes to surrender all research data and submit to Council authority. And if we refuse? Jake found himself asking, even though he knew the answer. Zethkar's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. Then you will serve as an example to the rest of humanity about the consequences of overreach. The transmission ended. The command center fell silent except for the quiet hum of computers and the distant sound of people going about their normal lives, unaware that everything was about to change. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "Admiral Rivera is requesting orders." Jake looked at the tactical display. 12 human ships against over 100 alien vessels. It wasn't a battle. It would be a massacre. But maybe they could. Buy time for some people to escape. Tell the Admiral to prepare for combat. Lisa, start evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel. Nathan, pack up all your research data. If we're going down, we're taking that information with us. Commander, the sensor operator said, his voice shaking. The alien fleet is powering weapons. Jake watched the display as energy readings spiked across the enemy formation. There would be no more talking, no more negotiations. The Council had made their decision. All ships, this is Admiral Rivera. For New Haven, for humanity, engage the enemy. The first shots lit up the darkness of space. Admiral Rivera's small fleet charged into the massive alien formation like wolves attacking a herd of buffalo. They fought with desperate courage, but the outcome was never in doubt. One by one, the human ships disappeared in flashes of light. Admiral Rivera's flagship was the last to fall, taking 3 alien vessels with it before the overwhelming firepower finally broke through its shields. Then the orbital bombardment began. The colony's defensive shields held for almost an hour, before failing under the concentrated fire of a dozen different weapon types. Jake watched from the command bunker as his city burned. The escape ship was small and damaged, but it was all they had left. Jake, Lisa, and Nathan crammed into the tiny vessel along with 50 other survivors and what remained of the terraforming data. As they limped away from the dying colony, Jake recorded a message for Earth. His voice was steady, but his hands shook as he spoke. "This is Commander Morrison of New Haven Colony. We are under attack by Council forces. Repeat, this is not an inspection. This is genocide. They destroyed our fleet and are bombing the colony. We have proof of their unprovoked aggression. Warn Earth. Prepare for war." Behind them, New Haven burned. 2.5 million humans were dead or dying. The Council had sent their message clearly. But as Jake watched his world disappear in the rear display, he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had a long memory for betrayal, and an even longer reach for revenge. The Council had no idea what they had just started. General Robert Hayes stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, watching the horrific footage from New Haven Colony for the 5th time. The images never got easier to see. Burning cities, fleeing civilians, and the bright flashes where Admiral Rivera's ships had died fighting impossible odds. President Mary Johnson sat at the head of the massive conference table, her face pale but determined. Around her, the most powerful people on Earth waited for her decision. Everyone knew what that decision would be, but the process had to be followed. "How many survived?" President Johnson asked quietly. 347 confirmed. "Survivors," General Hayes replied, "out of 2.5 million people." The room fell silent. The numbers spoke for themselves. This wasn't war. It was extermination. Commander Morrison's ship made it to the Alpha Centauri station. "Admiral," Susan Clark reported. "His testimony confirms everything we suspected. The Council planned this from the beginning. They never intended it to be an inspection." President Johnson nodded slowly. "And the terraforming research?" Dr. Brooks managed to save most of his data. The technology works and it's everything he claimed. We could turn dead worlds into gardens in 30 years instead of 300, which is exactly why they tried to kill us all, said Dr. Amanda Foster from the far end of the table. She was the head of humanity's most classified research project, something so secret that even most government officials didn't know it existed. Dr. Foster, President Johnson said, I think it's time you shared what Project Thunderbolt has been working on. Amanda stood up and activated the holographic display in the center of the room. What appeared made several people gasp out loud. For the past 15 years, we've been developing weapons that the Council doesn't know exist, Amanda explained. We learned long ago that showing all your cards in galactic politics is a good way to end up dead. The display showed ship designs unlike anything in the known galaxy. Sleek vessels bristling with weapons that seemed to bend light around them. Quantum disruption cannons that can tear apart matter at the atomic level, Amanda continued. Gravitational manipulation drives that can create artificial black holes, and self-replicating combat drones that learn from every engagement. General Hayes leaned forward. How many ships do we have? 200 completed vessels, with production facilities that can build 50 more per month. The Council thinks we have a few dozen outdated cruisers. They have no idea what's waiting for them. Admiral Clark pulled up another display. We've also been building something else in secret. Commander Paul Turner has been running reconnaissance missions in Council space for 2 years. A new face appeared on the screen, a young man with the confident look of someone who had seen enemy territory and lived to tell about it. Commander Turner, President Johnson said, what can you tell us about Council defenses? They're overconfident. Madam President, their security is designed to stop the kind of ships they think we have. Their main military base at Kepler Station has 300 ships, but they're spread out and poorly coordinated. They've never had to fight a real war. And their homeworlds? Defended by planetary shields and orbital platforms, but again, nothing designed to handle our actual capabilities. They think humans are primitive. That's going to be their biggest mistake. Dr. Helen Martinez, Earth's top terraforming expert, spoke up from her seat. If they want to see what human engineering can do to planets, I can show them. Dr. Brooks's research works both ways. We can make dead worlds into gardens, or we can turn gardens into dead worlds. The implications hung heavy in the air. Earth had the power to destroy entire planets. President Johnson looked around the table. Recommendations? Hit them hard and fast, General Hayes said without hesitation. Show them that attacking human civilians has consequences they can't imagine. I agree, Admiral Clark added, but we need to be smart about it. Take out their military coordination first, then their fleets, then give them a chance to surrender before we start targeting homeworlds. What about their ultimatum fleet? Asked the Secretary of Defense. Intelligence says they're sending 40 ships to demand Earth's surrender. Amanda smiled coldly. Let them come. We've prepared a very special welcome. President Johnson stood up. The room fell quiet as everyone waited for her words. The Council made a choice when they murdered 2.5 million innocent people. They wanted to teach humanity a lesson about knowing our place in the galaxy. She paused, her voice growing harder. We're going to teach them a lesson about what happens when you try to exterminate the human race. She turned to Admiral Clark. Begin mobilization of the fleet. I want every secret ship we have ready for combat within 72 hours. Dr. Foster, activate all Project Thunderbolt assets. It's time the galaxy saw what human engineering really looks like. Commander Turner, I want detailed intelligence on every major Council military installation. We're going to hit them all simultaneously. Dr. Martinez, begin preparation of planetary modification weapons. If they want to play with extinction, we'll show them how it's done properly. General Hayes cleared his throat. Madam President, this will mean total war. Once we reveal our true capabilities, there's no going back to the old relationship with the Council. Good, President Johnson replied. The old relationship got 2.5 million humans killed. It's time for a new arrangement, one where humanity writes the rules. She walked to the main display showing Earth from orbit. The blue marble looked peaceful and beautiful, but beneath its surface, the most dangerous species in the galaxy was preparing for war. Send a message to Commander Morrison and the other survivors, she said. Tell them that New Haven will be avenged. Every single life lost there will be paid for in council blood. The emergency session ended with everyone rushing to their tasks. Within hours, secret facilities across the solar system came online. Hidden shipyards that had been building in the shadows for decades began moving their deadly products toward launch positions. In the Deep Space Monitoring Station beyond Pluto, sensors detected the approaching Council ultimatum fleet, 40 ships confident in their mission to force humanity's surrender. What they didn't know was that Admiral Clark had positioned 50 of humanity's most advanced vessels in the asteroid belt, invisible to Council sensors and armed with weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The Council fleet would arrive expecting to find a frightened primitive species ready to beg for mercy. Instead, they would discover that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over a decade. Every slight, every condescending comment, every reminder of humanity's proper place in galactic society had been carefully catalogued and stored away. Now it was time to collect payment with interest. President Johnson's final order went out to every human military commander in the solar system. When the Council fleet arrives, show them no mercy. They didn't show any to the children of New Haven. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin, but the Council had no idea they weren't fighting for humanity's surrender. They were fighting for their own survival. Captain Alex Bennett stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the massive shape of Kepler Station grow larger on the main screen. The Council's primary military base looked like a small moon, bristling with weapons and surrounded by 300 warships from a dozen different alien species. 30 ships against 300, said his first officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah White. Those are terrible odds, sir. Alex smiled grimly. Only if you're counting fairly, but we're not here to fight fair. The Retribution was unlike any ship that had ever existed. Built in secret over the past 5 years, it represented humanity's finest military engineering. Its hull was made from materials that didn't appear on any Council periodic table, and its weapon systems violated several supposedly fundamental laws of physics. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Kepler Station, reported the communications officer. Admiral Jethamora's blue-scaled face appeared on the screen. The Zephyrian commander looked annoyed rather than worried. Human vessel, you are trespassing in Council military space. Turn around immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Jethamora, Alex replied calmly. I'm Captain Bennett of the Earth Defense Force. We're here to discuss the unprovoked attack on New Haven Colony. Jethamora's expression shifted to amusement. New Haven was dealt with according to Council law. If you wish to protest, file a formal complaint through proper channels. Now leave before I have you destroyed. I'm afraid I can't do that, Admiral. You see, New Haven was home to 2.5 million innocent people. People with families, children, dreams for the future. You killed them all. They were warned about the consequences of illegal research. Jethamora said coldly. Their deaths are on their own heads. Alex's smile disappeared. No, Admiral. Their deaths are on your head, and now it's time to pay the bill. The transmission ended. Alex turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Colonel White, you may fire when ready. Karen White had been waiting for this moment her entire career. The quantum disruption cannon was her design, her baby, and she was eager to see what it could do to a real target. Quantum disruption cannon charged and ready, sir. Target locked. On Kepler Station's main power core. Fire. The weapon made no sound, produced no visible beam, and created no flash of light. One moment Kepler Station was a solid, imposing structure. The next moment, a section of its hull simply ceased to exist. The effect spread like a cancer through the station's superstructure. Metal, plastic, and alien flesh all dissolved into their component atoms as the quantum disruption field expanded. Within minutes, the entire central section of the station was gone, vented into space along with thousands of alien personnel. My God, whispered Sarah White. It actually works. The Council fleet moved to attack, but Alex was ready for them. Commander Anderson, release the swarms. Tony Anderson had been dreaming of this moment. His self-replicating combat drones were the most sophisticated weapons ever created. Each one was no bigger than a basketball, but they were packed with enough artificial intelligence to outthink most organic pilots. The drone bays opened, releasing what looked like a small cloud of metallic insects. The swarms spread out through space, each individual unit analyzing the enemy ships and sharing data with its neighbors. Admiral Jethmora watched in growing horror as his fleet opened fire on the tiny targets. The drones were too small and too fast for conventional weapons to track. But every time a council ship was destroyed, something terrible happened. The debris from the destroyed vessel was consumed by the drone swarms, which used the raw materials to construct new units. Within minutes of each enemy ship's destruction, dozens of additional drones appeared to join the battle. "Sir, this is impossible," reported Jethmora's tactical officer. "Every ship we destroy makes their force stronger." "Then stop destroying them and use the disabling weapons," Jethmora ordered. "We can't disable them, sir. They're not ships. They're some kind of automated system, and they're learning from our attacks." It was true. The drones adapted to each weapon type after only a few exposures. Energy weapons that had worked initially became useless as the drones developed countermeasures. Kinetic weapons were avoided by flight patterns that seemed to predict exactly where each shot would go. Within an hour, the Council fleet was in full retreat. But space around Kepler Station had become a death trap. The drone swarms had grown to massive proportions, fed by the wreckage of over 100 alien warships. "Admiral, we have incoming reinforcements," reported the tactical officer. 200 ships from the hegemony fleet. Jethmora felt a moment of relief, then horror as he realized what was about to happen. The reinforcements were flying straight into the drone swarms, which now numbered in the tens of thousands. "Warning them off," he ordered desperately. "They're not responding, sir. Admiral Korthmar is demanding to know why we're retreating from a single human ship." The hegemony fleet arrived in perfect formation, ready to crush the impudent humans who dared challenge Council authority. They lasted exactly 14 minutes. The self-replicating drones fell on the new arrivals like a plague of metal locusts. Each destroyed ship provided materials for hundreds of new units. The exponential growth was frightening to watch. Captain Bennett observed the carnage with cold satisfaction. "Communications. Open a channel to all remaining Council forces." His image appeared on screens throughout the surviving alien ships. "This is Captain Bennett of the Earth Defense Force. You attacked New Haven Colony without provocation. You murdered 2.5 million innocent civilians. This is the consequence." He gestured to the expanding cloud of drones that now filled the entire star system. "These units will remain active in this system for the next century. Any Council ship that approaches will be destroyed, and its materials used to create more drones. Consider this our first payment for New Haven." Alex turned to his navigator. "Set course for Earth. It's time to see how the Council's ultimatum fleet is enjoying their welcome party." The Retribution turned away from the carnage, leaving behind a system that would serve as a permanent reminder of humanity's new approach to galactic politics. The drone swarms continued to grow, fed by the debris of what had once been the Council's most powerful military installation. Admiral Jethmora managed to escape with fewer than 20 ships out of his original 300. His report to the Council was brief and terrifying. Humanity had weapons that violated the fundamental rules of warfare. But the Council leadership refused to believe it. Surely the reports were exaggerated. Surely the humans had just gotten lucky. Surely their own ultimatum fleet would have no trouble forcing Earth's surrender. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. Back on Earth, President Johnson received Captain Bennett's report with grim satisfaction. The first phase of humanity's retaliation was complete. The Council had been shown that their safe bases and overwhelming numbers meant nothing against superior technology and absolute determination. Now it was time for Phase 2. The Council's ultimatum fleet was approaching Earth, expecting to find a frightened species ready to beg for mercy. Instead, they would find 4,700 years of human evolution's finest achievement, a species that had learned to turn peace into war, defense into offense, and mercy into merciless retribution. The Council had wanted to teach humanity about consequences. They were about to learn that lesson themselves. Colonel Danny Parker sat in the hidden command center on Luna, watching dozens of screens that showed council worlds across the galaxy. For weeks, his teams had been infiltrating alien computer networks, planting nanite programs that waited for his signal. "Status report," Danny called to his technical team. Dr. Rachel Green looked up from her workstation. "All infiltration systems are in place and ready. We have access to defense networks on 43 council worlds, plus their main communication, grid. How long until the nanites can take full control? Once activated, complete system takeover will happen in under 6 minutes on most worlds. The hegemony systems might take up to 10 minutes. They have better security." Danny nodded. The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's most secret weapon. Named after the mythological figure who stole fire from the gods, it was designed to turn the Council's own technology against them. On Earth, President Johnson was meeting with her War Council. The reports from Captain Bennett's attack on Kepler Station had shocked even the human leadership. The self-replicating drones had performed beyond all expectations. "The Council is mobilizing everything they have," reported Admiral Clark. "Over 2,000 ships from 63 different species. It's the largest military force in galactic history." "Good," President Johnson replied. "The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Colonel Parker, are you ready to activate Prometheus?" Danny's voice came through the speakers from Luna. "Ready when you give the word, Madam President. But I want to stress that once we do this, there's no hiding our capabilities anymore. Every species in the galaxy will know what we can do. They're going to find out anyway when their grand fleet arrives here. Better to strike first." President Johnson looked around the room. Any objections? There were none. The massacre at New Haven had united humanity like nothing in their history. "Colonel Parker, you are authorized to begin the Prometheus Protocol. Show them what happens when they threaten human civilians." Across the galaxy, the nanite programs activated simultaneously. On the Velthari homeworld, Admiral Zekmoth was reviewing fleet deployments when every screen in his command center suddenly went dark. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. We're losing contact with all systems. Defense platforms, communication arrays, even the planetary shields are going offline." The same scene played out on dozens of worlds. The Zephyrian military headquarters watched helplessly as their own defense satellites turned their weapons toward the planet. The hegemony's primary fleet base found its ships locked in their berths, unable to launch. But the worst was yet to come. As each world's defenses failed, small human strike teams emerged from hidden positions. They had been infiltrating council space for months, waiting for this moment. Captain Gary Miller led his team through the abandoned corridors of the Velthari Defense Center. The nanites had done their job perfectly, shutting down all security systems and locking the defending forces out of their own base. "Remember," Gary told his team, "we target military installations only, no civilian casualties. This is about ending the war, not committing genocide." The distinction was important to humanity's leadership. Unlike the Council, humans didn't believe in punishing innocent civilians for their government's actions. Gary's team planted charges on the primary defense computer and moved to the next target. Similar teams were operating on every major Council world, systematically dismantling military infrastructure while leaving civilian areas untouched. On the hegemony homeworld, the local population watched in amazement as human soldiers politely directed traffic around their demolition work. The aliens had expected brutal conquerors. Instead, they found professional soldiers who seemed more interested in protecting civilian lives than taking them. Admiral Korthmar, commander of the massive Council fleet heading toward Earth, received the first reports of the coordinated attacks with disbelief. "Simultaneous strikes on 43 worlds? That's impossible. Humans don't have that kind of reach." "Sir, we're receiving reports that human forces are already on our worlds. Somehow they bypassed all our security and took control of our defense networks. How many ships did they use for these attacks?" "That's just it, sir. No ships. Small teams. Maybe a dozen humans per world. They're using our own systems against us." Korthmar felt a cold chill. If humans could infiltrate Council worlds so easily, what else were they capable of? The answer came from Admiral Clark, whose hidden fleet was finally revealed. For years, humanity had been building secret bases in supposedly empty star systems. These ghost stations activated all at once, revealing a logistical network that spanned half the galaxy. Senator Victoria Adams, working from one of these hidden stations, began reaching out to moderate council species. Her message was carefully crafted to split the alien alliance. "The leadership of your species committed genocide against innocent humans," she told the Altarian representative. "But we know that not all of your people supported this decision. Humanity remembers its friends as clearly as it remembers its enemies." The psychological warfare was devastatingly effective. Species that had been reluctant partners in the anti-human alliance began reconsidering their positions. Why should they sacrifice their fleets for a war they had never wanted? Meanwhile, Dr. Helen Martinez was putting the finishing touches on her planetary modification weapons. The devices could alter a world's atmosphere and climate, turning garden planets into uninhabitable wastelands. "The beauty of this system," she explained to President Johnson, "is that it's completely reversible. We can make their worlds unlivable, then restore them once they surrender. It's the ultimate negotiating tool." But the most devastating blow came when the nanites revealed the location of every council military asset. Hidden bases, secret shipyards, classified research facilities, all of it was suddenly exposed to human intelligence. Captain Steve Johnson, coordinating the intelligence analysis, couldn't believe what he was seeing. "They have 3 times as many ships as they claimed, but most of them are outdated, and their newest vessels are using technology we surpassed 5 years ago." The revelation was shocking. The Council had been threatening humanity with fleets that were essentially obsolete by human standards. As reports poured in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the Prometheus Protocol had achieved total success. Council military infrastructure was crippled, their communications were compromised, and their fleets were trapped or disabled. But Admiral Korthmar's Grand Armada was still approaching Earth, unaware of what had happened to their homeworlds. The Council leadership had convinced themselves that brute force could still win the day. President Johnson watched the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 2,000 ships from 63 species, representing everything the Council could muster. "It's almost sad," she said to General Hayes. "They still think they're coming to force our surrender. They have no idea that their entire civilization is already under our control." "Should we warn them off?" Hayes asked. "No. They chose this path when they murdered New Haven. Let them come to Earth. Let them see what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be weak." The massive Council fleet continued toward the Sol system, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They expected to find a frightened species begging for mercy. Instead, they were flying toward a trap that had been 15 years in the making. Earth wasn't just defended, it was transformed into the most deadly fortress in galactic history. And waiting for them was a species that had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to be so terrifyingly effective at war that nobody ever wants to fight you again. The Council was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Admiral Korthmar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Sol system grow larger on the main screen. Behind him, 2,000 ships from 63 different species formed the largest military fleet in galactic history. He felt confident that this show of force would finally make the humans see reason. "Admiral, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the outer planets," reported his sensor officer. "Probably just their primitive defense satellites," Korthmar replied dismissively. "Continue the approach." What the Admiral didn't know was that General Hayes was watching his fleet from a command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. Earth's true defenses had been hidden for over a decade, waiting for exactly this moment. "Status report," Hayes called to his staff. "All gravity manipulation platforms are online and ready," reported Captain Steve Johnson. "The enemy fleet is entering the outer perimeter now. What about Admiral Clark's hidden fleet? Positioned behind Jupiter and ready to emerge on your command, sir." Hayes nodded. The Council fleet thought they were facing Earth's small defense force. They had no idea that humanity's real military power had been carefully concealed throughout the solar system. President Johnson's voice came through the speakers from her secure bunker. Admiral Korthmar is requesting to speak with Earth's leadership. Put him through, Hayes replied. Korthmar's stern face appeared on the main screen. The hegemony admiral looked supremely confident as he began his prepared speech. People of Earth, I am Admiral Korthmar of the Galactic Council Fleet. You have committed acts of war against lawful council authority. Surrender immediately, and we will consider showing mercy, President Johnson's calm voice responded. Admiral, we tried to be good neighbors for 50 years. We followed your rules, paid your taxes, and asked for nothing but the right to exist peacefully. You repaid us by murdering 2.5 million innocent people. New Haven was destroyed according to council law, Korthmar replied coldly. Their illegal research threatened galactic stability. No, Admiral. What threatened galactic stability was your decision to commit genocide. You've made a terrible mistake, and now you're going to pay for it. Korthmar laughed. With what? Your handful of obsolete ships? I have 2,000 vessels under my command. Surrender now or we will reduce your planet to ash. Admiral, President Johnson said quietly, you still don't understand what you're dealing with. We gave you every chance to coexist peacefully. You chose war instead, so be it. The transmission ended. Hayes turned to Captain Johnson. Activate the Sol defense grid. What the Council fleet had mistaken for primitive satellites suddenly revealed their true purpose. Gravity manipulation platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment came online throughout the solar system. Space itself began to bend and twist around the alien ships. Admiral Korthmar watched in horror as his perfect formation was pulled apart by forces that shouldn't exist. Ships found themselves trapped in artificial gravity wells that compressed entire squadrons into tight clusters. What's happening? He demanded. Unknown technology, sir. They're manipulating space-time itself. Our ships can't maneuver. Impossible. No species has that level of technology. But it was happening. The Council fleet, spread across millions of cubic kilometers of space, was being compressed into easily targeted formations. Ships that tried to retreat discovered that local space had been folded in on itself. There was no escape from the Sol system. Then Admiral Clark's hidden fleet emerged from behind Jupiter. The Council forces had expected to face maybe 50 human ships. Instead, over 400 of humanity's most advanced vessels appeared, armed with weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Sir, those ships don't match any known human designs, reported Korthmar's tactical officer. Energy readings are off the charts. The first human attack came from Dr. Foster's reality anchor weapons. These devices stabilized local physics, preventing the use of most Council technologies that relied on manipulating universal constants. Suddenly, the alien ships found their most advanced weapons simply wouldn't work. Energy shields failed, hyperspace drives shut down, and even basic life support systems began experiencing problems. All weapons offline, sir, reported the tactical officer in panic. Something is interfering with our technology at the quantum level. Stripped of their technological advantages, the Council ships became sitting targets for humanity's conventional weapons, but even those weren't needed. The gravity wells created by the defense grid were doing most of the work. Ship after ship was crushed by forces that the alien hulls were never designed to withstand. The lucky ones lost power and life support. The unlucky ones were compressed into dense metal spheres. Admiral Korthmar found himself trapped aboard one of the few ships still functional. His mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons he couldn't even understand. Admiral, incoming transmission from the human fleet, his communications officer reported. Admiral Clark's weathered face appeared on the screen. Admiral Korthmar, this is Admiral Clark of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Never, Korthmar snarled. The Council will send more fleets. We will never bow to primitive humans. Clark's expression didn't change. Admiral, look around you. Your fleet is destroyed. Your homeworlds are under our control. The Council no longer exists as a military force. It's over. For the first time, Korthmar seemed to realize the scope of his defeat. This is impossible. You're just one species, we are 63. And every one of those species is learning the same lesson you are, Clark replied. Humanity remembers its friends and its enemies with equal clarity. You chose to be our enemies. The battle was over within hours. The Council's Grand Armada was either destroyed or captured, with Admiral Korthmar himself taken prisoner. But humanity's retaliation wasn't finished. Commander Morrison, the survivor from New Haven, led the final mission to the Council homeworlds. His message was delivered not through words, but through demonstration. On every world that had participated in the New Haven massacre, the populations watched as their military infrastructure was systematically dismantled. Orbital defense platforms were reduced to scrap metal. Fleet bases were turned into empty craters. The message was clear. This was the price of genocide. But unlike the Council's attack on New Haven, no civilians were harmed. Human forces went to extraordinary lengths to protect innocent lives while destroying military targets. The contrast was not lost on the alien populations. Within a month, the war was over. The Galactic Council formally dissolved itself and begged for mercy. In its place, a new interstellar government was established with humanity holding veto power over all major decisions. The surviving Council species agreed to pay reparations that would fund human expansion for the next 1,000 years. More importantly, they agreed to new laws that made genocide a crime punishable by total war. President Johnson's closing statement at the treaty signing became legendary throughout the galaxy. We came to the stars offering friendship and trade. You taught us that the universe respects only strength. Thank you for the lesson. Commander Morrison, standing beside her, added his own words. New Haven is avenged. The 2.5 million innocent people who died there can finally rest in peace. The epilogue came 5 years later. Human colonies were spreading throughout the galaxy at an unprecedented rate, protected by fleets that made the old Council forces look like toys. The galaxy had learned a harsh truth about humanity. Earth's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their capacity to become whatever their enemies forced them to become. The Council had wanted to see human nature at its worst. They had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares, and their enemies had made them become merciless.